for that. So just a little bit of introduction here along the way. You know, since 2002, Supplier Partnership has provided this forum for global automotive manufacturers, both large and small suppliers, and the US EPA and other government entities around the world to work together and improve environmental sustainability and business value in a global automotive supply chain. And that's, I mean, that's no news to everybody, but it's worth mentioning again. This is what we're here for. So coming into 2020, the SP Executive Committee set out a challenge to ensure that we continue to build on SP's strength while pursuing new opportunities and to collectively make a meaningful impact in contributing to our industry's shared environmental sustainability aspirations. And you can see just a few of those that are listed here on the side, the images. And we're looking for aligning all these with what our supply base is doing. And that's what the panel's about, for us to tell you where we're at and then how we can work together to achieve our mutual goals. So we've been about, and we've had this conversation, but we've looked at our vision and mission. And what you see in front of you is where we landed as a succinct and brief vision, which says an automotive industry with a positive environmental impact, which I think is a great short vision, with a mission that says bringing together companies in automotive value chain in partnership with US EPA to advance projects with positive environmental and economic and community impact. So this is where we're at now with our vision and mission, and I think it really gives us the guideline and the beacon of where we should be going. So our vision for SP is to work together toward a shared vision of automotive industry with positive environmental impact by advancing leading practices and projects in 3 areas: sustainable operations, which is striving to transform our manufacturing operations to achieve positive environmental impact through minimizing resource use, optimizing efficiency, and advancing innovation. Yesterday, we had a discussion for those that joined on the technology call, where that is possibly a new group that we will be forming, new work group, that we can share these innovations and share these ideas, which is exactly what this particular goal is about. And I look forward to explaining more about that. Second is sustainable materials, strive and eliminate waste and optimize use of sustainable materials in our operations and products. And then the last is sustainable suppliers. And that is striving to help our suppliers minimize their environmental impact and advance sustainable innovations at a scale through sharing of environmental best practices, tools, and resources. And that, that means, not just tier 1, 2, 3, 4, it's all the suppliers that supply everybody else. So how do we continue to share this information and at scale continue to advance these sustainable innovations? So today's sessions are this virtual third quarter meeting are the first step in the process of working together towards our renewed vision of an automotive industry with positive environmental impact. Our panel sessions this morning will begin to introduce and explore key long-term environmental sustainability goals across the industry, which we intend to collectively work together to address in our future SP meetings and in work group initiatives. We also going to look forward to continuing to collaborate and learn from each of you as we move forward in this journey. So this morning, to start this process, we have a panel of outstanding individuals who are going to talk to you about what their particular organization is doing and how they're aligning their long-term sustainability goals. I look forward to hearing each of them and comparing notes as to what they're doing versus what I'm doing and what others are all doing. So first off, we're going to hear from Andy Hobbs, and I think, Steve, I'm going to turn this over to you for the introductions.
Great. Thank you, Kevin, and good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being part of this. You know, I guess it goes unsaid that we wish the situation were such that we could be doing this in person, but by golly, we're going to keep moving forward, and we've got some great things that we're talking about and working on. I'm not going to do an elongated introduction because I think most of you know these folks who have been our part of the executive committee. But I would ask that during the discussion, think about a couple of things. One, are there specific questions that you would like to ask of them? You can use the question section of the WOVA app if you would like. If not, the mic will be open so that you can ask those questions. And then secondly, think in the context of, as the issues are discussed, how can we as an SP collective help address those issues? The calls over the last couple of days came up with a wide range of potential opportunities for collaborative activities between, you know, not only the OEMs, but also larger tier 1 suppliers as well as small and mid-sized companies. So the creativity works, and the opportunities come from the collaboration of all of us working together. So without further ado, I've got a great panel. You've already got the agendas in front of you. What I'm going to do is first I'm going to ask Andy Hobbs to start us off from Ford. We will have a little bit of time for Q&A after. And so without further ado, Andy, it's a pleasure to have you on the call this morning, and it's now up to you.
Well, thank you, Steve. First of all, I'd like to thank, Steve, Kellen, and Kevin for inviting myself to participate this morning. So I'm very happy to do that. I also want to thank Sue Rokos, who, does just a magnificent job representing me predominantly in these meetings, and also Dionisio Manchero in our Mexican team with the Suppliers Partnership Group in Mexico, because I think my view is I want to give you and support you with the best people we have to give you the best input we have. So thank you very much again. I'm also, I just want to send my congratulations to Russell. I don't know if he was on. It's kind of great for him to be retiring. It's disappointing for me as he's the only person who can understand my stupid accent. So that's also good for him. And so congratulations, Russell. So Kellen, I'm relying on you to advance the slides because I am technologically challenged today, as you know. So if we could go to the first slide, please. And I'm
sure, we've got your first slide up now.
So if I'm looking at the right slide, we have a slide titled Manufacturing Environmental Strategic Direction. And so all of you will know that two things. One is, Ford Motor Company is not an egalitarian environmental company. Everything we do has to have a purpose, everything we do has to have a benefit, and it has to have a financial benefit. We also recognize that the supply base more broadly is worth 10 or 15 times what we as one company are. So we are very happy to free issue technologies, free issue formats, free issue everything to the supply base to benefit from some of the experiences we have. So that's the first thing. We also recognize that many, if not all, of our challenges do not get fixed in a year. And so what we used to do was every year we'd sit down and kind of set the objectives for the following year. And that was, hugely problematic and lacked a lot of discipline. So it was actually Sue Rokos and I sat down around a desk and on a napkin, we wrote what we considered our first manufacturing strategic direction. And what we do now is every 4 or 5 years, we review it to see if we update it because we recognize things change. But there's a couple of tenets that have remained positive. One is that we always want it to be a holistic approach to the environmental impact and to be a positive impact. What do I mean by that? I don't want to abate tons of VOC at the expense of CO2 and say everything's great. right? That's not the plan. So we have to look holistically and see what is the best plan to go forward. We're really interested in airshed improvements. We're really interested in resource restoration in terms of, let's try and, the way I try and describe it to people is, it's the old adage of you put a pencil in a pond, you pull it out, and it was never there. That's the way I would like our manufacturing facilities to be. So they are actually, at best, no impact whatsoever. And then beyond that, where our challenge is to go to a positive impact. And of course, materials and toxicity. And, it's not just about mass, it's about toxicity. So we really try and focus on that. And maybe one thing I forgot to say at the start here was my responsibility as Global Director for Environmental Quality Office is everything without wheels. So it's past, present, future for every single facility we have. So that's where I fit in. Next slide, please, Kellen. So what you see here is our commitment to the SDGs. I'm sure you're all familiar with them. And we've kind of circled here those parts of the SDGs that we think we can influence. Not to say the others are not important, they really are, but it's things that we can actually impact from within the Environmental Quality Office. Next slide, please. So we have a number of strategies, and they're typically 5-year strategies. We have a midterm review to make sure things haven't changed either positively or negatively in terms of technologies and opportunities to make sure we're still on the right path. So we're in the, kind of the midst of our carbon strategy. We have an 18% absolute reduction. We're moving to absolutes as opposed to unitized emissions or unitized goals. We also plan to have 32% renewable energy by 2023 and 100% renewable energy by 2035. And the interesting part about that strategy from a forward perspective is we do not anticipate achieving that by buying credits and applying them in other parts of a region. We are working on having them locally sourced. So a prime example is the contract we've signed with DTE here in Michigan as part of their wind farm, which will basically feed into the grid that ensures our Michigan assembly plant that will produce the new Bronco, our Dearborn truck plant, which produced the F-150, our new PDC group, product development group, and our new Corktown operations will all be on renewable energy this year and next year. We also have signed a contract which will have all of Mexico on renewable energy. We've signed a contract already. We hope it to be complete by the end of this year, but it might be next year. And then the new goal, as has been highlighted here, is we intend to be carbon neutral for the company worldwide, including product, by 2050. Water is a big deal for us. We started work on water in the year 2000. It was kind of funny because at that point everybody said, why the heck are we wasting time on water? It's inexpensive, it's abundant, and people were negating the fact that the infrastructure was hugely challenged, but we did set strategies. We're actually now at about, from a year 2000 to date, about 72% less water consumption. And as we have continued down that path, first of all, it has been financially beneficial. Second of all, we've kind of increased our strategy to say that we really don't want to use fresh water in our manufacturing facilities at all, except for human consumption, that kind of thing. So we're working through that, and we've had some really great progress in terms of gray water and black water in many of our facilities, and it's really good, and we continue down that path. And then waste, zero waste to landfill. We went down that path, and we've had reductions in waste. We've had reductions in our total consumption. There is some kind of cost to going zero waste to landfill, because typically what we do is we take general trash and other things to a waste to energy kind of situation. However, we have just recently done a thing that says we can prove that when we have these zero waste to landfills, it's the equivalent of taking, in terms of CO2 reduction, it's the equivalent of taking 1 million vehicles off the road per year. So we're working through that. And then the final thing is we are working very actively on having a single-use plastic elimination by 2030. That's been somewhat impacted by the COVID situation because, the first thing we were doing was in our cafeterias and canteens. And obviously now that's kind of become a little bit more problematic in terms of reuse. But in terms of the broader production, in terms of caps and protective caps and products, we're working through that. We haven't changed our agenda, but we've certainly got some new complications. Next, go forward 2 slides, I think, Kellen. So it should be global water strategy, past successes. As you'll see, we and Bill announced our commitment to water in the year 2000. There was a 42% water per vehicle reduction through 2009. But then as you continue going forward, as I said, we've saved about 11 billion gallons of water since 2000, which is not insignificant and is certainly a huge cost benefit to the business. Next slide, please, Kellen. You'll see we're still talking here about the 30% reduction in water use per vehicle from 15 to 20. We typically do every 5 years a 30% goal, and certainly my engineers do a clutch their heart and roll on the floor every time we say that. But we're working through it, and it's challenging, but I think we have the right mindset. We're working through it, and we also look at the total cost, and that includes supply, use, treatment, discharge, recycling. So when we look at the costs of the business, we try and look at everything we have. Next slide, please, Kellen. This just shows the hierarchy of how we look at everything, and whether it be waste to landfill, CO2, or water, the hierarchy tends to be the same. Our view is the one best thing to not do is not use water, not use energy, not generate waste. And then as you go through the hierarchy, you see how we think we get to the pinnacle of the best actions. Next slide, please. And I'm going through this fast because I know I'm time constrained here. Water reuse and recycling, I kind of mentioned before. Mexico, we have got a really great situation where all of our Irapuato transmission is accepting black water from a local source. So that's really cool. In China, we have locally treated waste recycling systems. In India, we have 100% capture and reuse because they are zero liquid discharge facilities as required by regulation. And in the US, we have Flat Rock and Kansas City have recycling and reuse systems in place. Next 2 slides, let's go straight to the past successes on global waste. Our initial strategy was focused on reducing waste sent to landfill. We've also focused on getting waste to landfill target reduced. We're about 40% less than we had since 2011 to 2016, because as you will all recognize, there is a cost even when you have a waste to energy system. So we're working on that. Our target was met a couple of years early. Next slide, please, Kellen. Here's our hierarchy, very similar. We consider landfill to be the worst possible situation, avoidance to be the best situation, and then everything in between. It's different by country worldwide because some people really emphasize the taxation for landfill that is not true in the US. So the cost equations and the balances are different everywhere we do it. Next slide, please, Kellen. We continue to look at targets on general trash, which is kind of interesting, particularly as we globalize and bring components and products in from across the world. That gives us a bit of a challenge with packaging because we're not going to send reusable packaging back to China on a ship with nothing in it. So we continue to work through that, and we continue to work on actual reductions as well. Next slide, please. Carbon reduction strategy, past successes. We had a 30% reduction in CO2 emissions per vehicle over the 8 years earlier than we had predicted to do it. And these are kind of some of the technology we used. It's probably very simple and common to everybody, so I don't need to spend much time on that. Next slide, please, is the hierarchical chart that we have. And of course, as I said, and our whole strategy to start with was, let's reduce energy consumption, because there's only one thing in my mind better than renewable energy, and that is not using the energy at all. So that's kind of our focus. We're now past that. We've got some great reductions. Next slide, please. We're going to continue to have an additional 18% reduction by 2023, as we have committed to the Paris Accord and going beyond the 2-degree stabilization pathway. Manufacturing have a great plan for that. Product also has a plan that I think we're online for. And then our goals that we have established and approved this year as part of last year and this year as part of our sustainability report is the 100% renewables by 2035 and actually carbon neutrality by 2050. Next slide, please. It just shows some of the achievements we've had in our buildings. You know, it's not just our manufacturing facilities, it's our broader base in terms of our Corktown campus, our whole Dearborn reconciliation in terms of product development and office spaces, which actually, just so everybody knows, has changed dramatically in the COVID situation. So we're going to have to work through that. And I think, and I went through that very quickly, I think that was my last slide, Cal, and I hope I didn't go too far over.
Mm-hmm.
No, Andy, that's great. Maybe just a couple of questions, and if you have questions, if you just stick them through the Q&A portal, we'll ask them. Christian Getz is basically saying, what kind of drove you guys toward absolutes, and talk about that absolute commitment.
It's a really insightful question, and I appreciate the question as well. So one of the challenges we have is when we have a unitized metric, it doesn't matter what metric it is, it's driven by demand. So it's something we have no control over, where the volume goes up and we look great because we did nothing, but our unitized metric went down, or the volume goes down and we look bad and we didn't do anything different. So that was because it was very frustrating to me over many years. So we said, okay, we're going to take that out of the equation. Let's look at absolute. So your absolute is what it is, and we're going to drive that down. And the other thing that it's not unimportant is, the NGOs we work with, they don't care about unitized figures. They care about absolutes. So this year is going to be a very interesting year for us, because while we were down for 3 months predominantly, around the world, we were producing PPE, we had maintenance items, we had all this stuff going on. So our base level is going to look very strange and shouldn't be a target level for years going forward. And we were producing PPE, which is not a unitized figure for vehicles. So we're going to report next year on our actuals, but we're also going to normalize it in some way that recognizes the 3 months downtime. But that's why we did it, and it's going to be challenging, because when volumes go up, our friends in manufacturing are going to scream, "Oh my God, I had to produce more cars. I used more energy." So, but we're going to work through that.
That's great. That's great. Another question. Linda Gaines is asking, what are you all doing, or what are the steps you're taking to work and drive sustainability with your supply chain?
So we have a number of initiatives and drives through there. We have the PACE team through our purchasing group. We also have made the offer through them to our tier 1 suppliers that says, hey, we're more than willing and happy and prepared to free issue to you our environmental operating system, our technologies. We don't view this as proprietary to us. We view this as an opportunity for you guys to take this technology, take these systems, apply them in your plants that you know better than we do, and achieve results similar, if not better, than we have done. So we have reached out through our PACE group to ensure that we do that. So yeah, and obviously we have supplier partnership here, which is equally, if not more important, where we're happy to share stuff and happy to drive innovation.
Excellent, excellent. We're going to proceed on. I know you've got some other deadlines that are facing you like immediately, and hopefully we'll get you back maybe later in the call. But Andy, thank you so much for being part of this discussion this morning, and the presentation is obviously quite impressive. as are the
Thank
other
you, Steve.
presentations that are coming from our other folks. And so thanks so much, and we'll be talking to you soon. Take care.
Thanks, Steve. We have a real important meeting, which is our back to work meeting. So I'm excited about that too.
That's incredibly important. So you take care and good luck with that one too. Okay. Next is Kevin Butt. In addition to being our chair, you know, Toyota's another one of our great leaders. And so Kevin, I'm just going to turn it straight over to you. Okay.
Thanks, Steve. I am an underachiever as far as slides go today compared to what Andy just put up there. But I have one slide, and basically I want to talk to you about our methodology and our strategy, so to help you understand where we're going and why. If you look at the diagram on there, on the slide, on the very bottom, it talks about Toyota North America focus areas. So like Ford, Toyota for a long time now has been working on 5-year action plans. So we set strategy 5 years at a time, and we're now about to issue our 7th environmental action plan. And they're getting these action plans set the strategy for whatever we're working on for the least 5 years. And we often revisit those on an annual basis to make sure that what has changed in the world we're addressing. So in North America, we have 4 focus areas: water, carbon, materials, and biodiversity. Back in 2015, Toyota Motor Corporation, my parent company, issued what is the Challenge 2050. The Challenge 2050 is a series of 6 challenges that you can see there. Challenge 1 is our tailpipe emissions. Challenge 2 is our life cycle within our supply base. 3 is our manufacturing targets of 0 CO2. Challenge 4 is our water target. Challenge 5 is our materials, chemical management, and recycling. And challenge 6 is our biodiversity, and what are we doing to improve the ecosystems in not only areas in which we have business, but also areas around the world that are in need of assistance. We also have linked these then to what we have 6 of the United Nations sustainable goals that we're looking at. And you can read those for yourself. But this link between all of these is the strategy in which we're moving to make positive change. And our Challenge 2050 states that we will be net positive by 2050. I am still trying to determine what net positive means totally for us, and how we might achieve that. So that's critical determination for us. The other thing that is most important in this discussion today is our Challenge 2 and our carbon focus area. This is the area where we're dealing with our supply base and how we can share our methodologies, our technologies, and innovative things with our supply base, so that we can encourage our suppliers to join us in this adventure. Obviously, some of our suppliers are already well down the path and are moving in a great area, and so that's good. But as a matter of fact, I am just now hiring a new person to work specifically with our supply base to encourage and share and communicate our strategy and begin understanding what our suppliers are actually doing. And hopefully, you know, Honda does a great job, and are probably out in front of most of us in how they communicate and deal with suppliers in this sustainability arena. So we're looking to move in that same direction, looking to begin this collaboration with our suppliers. So if you look at Challenge 2 simply states that we're going to be zero CO2 throughout the supply chain. That's a pretty daunting task, and I'm sure you're excited about it, as I am. So how do we get there? So we have to begin the process, and I can't think of a better place for us to all communicate and right here in Supplier Partner of how do we share these ideas? How do we move forward with innovative ideas that each of us come up with that we can as a collective implement and put in place? Then on this large scale, we've really made a huge impact to the carbon footprint throughout our whole enterprise. So that to me is probably the most exciting part of what our strategy is, and that's this collective collaborative that will move us forward in achieving these targets. As Andy said, we're not in this alone. We all have some of the same suppliers, and to me that, giving a common direction and a common assist, it can only be helpful in achieving the final, the baseline target. So I'm not going to ramble on much longer, but that is kind of our view. I mean, we have a ton of individual targets also with numbers associated with them that we could share at another time. Given my 10-minute window, I just wanted to get the big picture out and let you know that's where we're currently at. And thank you very much. And I look forward to us collaborating and actually doing something that makes a change. That's the very important thing. We can't talk about it. We got to do something.
Absolutely. And Kevin, that's one of the things Kevin continues to drive with all of us. And it's all what we're all about too. I mean, talk is great, but the whole idea is how do you move that talk into action? One of the questions, Kevin, for you is on your zero to CO2 emissions. Is that from direct and indirect facilities, or does it also include product life cycle?
Yeah, that's product life cycle. That's life cycle assessment right there.
Great. I want to talk a little bit about the process that you went through. I mean, I think most people know you recently were promoted. My guess is that included a lot of new responsibilities. Obviously, you're doing some new hiring, focusing on expanding programs. What was the process that you had to go through in order for the company to recognize how important that was, particularly with regard to the supply chain?
It wasn't a quick process, but one of the things that we work very hard on is communicating with our treasury, our purchasing side, and our accounting group. I actually feel like I'm more of an accountant now than I am a sustainability guy these days. But the business case development, understanding the tangible and intangible aspects of sustainability has been an incredible way in which we've been able to show the company that these projects are valuable. And just a little tidbit, I can prove that we are actually the return on investment and return on weighted capital that we do in sustainability provides a higher yield than most all of the other returns for any of our other capital projects. So to me, once you can prove that side of the business, if I provide more value than throwing in 20 more arc welders, and return on investment is higher through a sustainability project, to me that starts to speak volumes, and that's where we're starting to see a lot of turnaround in the mindset.
Great. One more question for you. Are you using LCA software to run those CO2 impacts?
No, not yet. LCA, life cycle assessment to me
would you like to expand on that? Because
yeah. Life cycle assessment is such an academic exercise, and when you talk to 10 different people who claim to be life cycle assessment experts, you get a lot of different opinions about life cycle. So we're in the process of trying to understand this internally, as well as, I've talked with MIT, I've talked with, all the high-powered organizations. So we're in the process of developing a consistent model that we believe has some merit, and that goes, with the product as well. So how do we get that all to align correctly and consistently?
That's great. Kevin, thank you so much. We appreciate that very much. I'm going to move right on to Ray Howard. I think Kellen's got you up and ready to go, and thank you so much for being part of this discussion today, and it's all yours.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm very excited to be here. Again, my name is Ray Howard. I'm from General Motors, and I'm here to share our environmental sustainability goals. And then, Kellen, are you going to advance the slides?
Yes, I'll advance them for you, Ray.
Okay, excellent. So at General Motors, our corporate vision is that we see a world with zero crashes, zero emissions, and zero congestion. And our people are the driving force behind this reality. Our vision is strongly intertwined with our corporate values. We are driving towards our vision through innovation, including but not limited to expanded use of electric vehicle technologies and implementations. Next slide. Our vision of zero crashes, zero emissions, and zero congestion, especially zero emissions, guide our environmental plans and goals. Our current environmental sustainability goals are shown in our sustainability report that end in 2020. The current goals were developed in 2010. So some people had 10-year goals, some people had 5-year cycles. Our current goals were developed 10 years ago. Many of these goals were already achieved and are including our original renewable energy goal of 125 megawatt hours. That one was achieved in 2016. Over time, we've created some new targets to consistently challenge ourselves. Recently, we reviewed our materiality assessment, existing goals, world conditions, and stakeholder views to develop our new environmental sustainability goals with cross-functional collaboration. The 5 pillars of our new environmental sustainability goals are sustainable materials, zero waste, carbon in scope 1, energy in scope 2, and water. These goals also relate to the United Nations Sustainable, you can go back one. These goals also relate to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals under number 12, which is responsible consumption and production, 11, sustainable cities and communities, 13, climate action, and number 6, clean water and sanitation. And we can move on now. In February of this year, our CEO, Mary Barra, shared our new environmental sustainability targets at Capital Markets Day. These are 100% renewable energy globally by 2040 and in the U.S. by 2030, enabling 100% end-of-life battery recycling, as well as 50% sustainable material content and greater than 85% vehicle reuse or recycling by mass. We can go to the next slide. To support these new environmental sustainability goals, we have strategic focus groups to take action. Each of these groups is determining the best path forward to execute and to accomplish our goals. All of these groups come together and share our status as well as our lessons learned. I will draw special attention to our supplier relations team. This team collaborates very closely with our supply base to ensure use of the most up-to-date information, materials, processes, and technologies, as well as shared goals. We go to the next slide. In addition to our internal focus on driving sustainability throughout our organization, we also strive to encourage and to inspire future generations in environmental sustainability. If you are aware of an outstanding student seeking a 2021 summer internship or co-op opportunity, please have the student apply at the site listed on the slide here. Over time, I believe that GM has also supported several eco-schools, and that's part of the National Wildlife Federation eco-schools during several school years. By far, as an auto company working with the National Wildlife Federation, this is extremely important to us and also helps with our vision of working with youth and helping to get them interested in environmental sustainability. Last year, we highlighted the carbon calculator as our GM-supported school program throughout all of the eco-schools we support throughout the entire United States. Locally in Michigan, one of our GM volunteer teams helped the Hoover Elementary School in Livonia to achieve the green flag status. This is the highest status that's achievable by the students. Another program in which we actively participate is with the Society of Automotive Engineers through A World in Motion. We have several engineers that support several schools, and this goes through about the 4th through the 6th grades to make sure that everyone there has opportunities and projects in which to practice STEM in action. Another project in which we're very supportive is with Ashoka. We are currently sponsoring the Our Planet, Our Purpose STEM Challenge for change making. This is for youth ages 14 to 18 to develop solutions to our most pressing sustainability challenges. This year we've pivoted to a virtual summit, and we have GM employees interacting and sharing with the student teams. We also support MIT S-Lab and also MIT Solve. These are areas in which we have students come and work with GM employees, specifically for the S-Lab, on a project that we provide to them. And with MIT Solve, we're looking at ways in which we can help support new ideation and also new ideas in the world of environmental sustainability. So overall, these are our new efforts, as well as an overview of some of our past experiences at GM on our environmental sustainability goals. So thank you so much for this time, and I'm ready to answer some questions.
Thank you, Ray. We appreciate that. Let me start off specifically. I'm going to ask you a human question about the Ashoka program, okay? I know that you were on the review committee for the Ashoka activities. What were some of the things that impressed you about the young people that were applying for that program?
So I was extremely impressed by the level of detail as well as the ingenuity by the students. Again, these are youth who are ages 14 through 18. They have to develop their own teams, their own projects, and solve an idea. So with this, it was amazing, the breadth of experience and information that the team shared, as well as the project. So next week we have our virtual summit, and at the virtual summit we'll give more specific details to the winning teams, as well as, again, some specific feedback. But overall, it's an excellent program, and I would even encourage those who are listening today, if they know of some youth that are interested and have some ideas and projects, to consider participating for next year.
Great. Thanks, Ray. What are some of your supplier targets? How have you developed that strategy? And then how is that working relationship between your sustainability group as well as the direct procurement folks with regard to the supply chain?
Yes. So the relationship between our team, which is the sustainability team, and the procurement team is extremely strong. We've been developing that a lot closer this year as we talked about the focus groups that we have. And in those focus groups, one of them is the supplier relations team. And in that, we have created our own sustainability supplier council with a few select suppliers who have established and shown leadership in the realm of environmental sustainability. So we're working very closely with them to share ideas and look at some directions in which we should go forward. And this is learning from them and them also learning from us. For this year, some of our sustainability goals with our suppliers include an increase in the number of our suppliers that actually provide information or submit to the Carbon Disclosure Project, which helps us to understand our progress towards our environmental sustainability goals better. And these goals would include things like water, energy, as well as carbon from Scope 1.
That's awesome. What about what kind of materials that you're including in your sustainable materials programs?
Yes. So for our sustainable materials programs, we're taking a broad focus and looking at materials. So we're including plastics, we're including metals, we're including textiles. We're looking at the broad range of materials because all of them are used within the manufacture of our vehicles, and we want to understand truly what are the raw materials that are associated, as well as some of the processing that goes on in creating those parts and getting them to be part of the assembly process. So we want to go further back in our supply chain to understand the raw materials as well as the processes and their environmental impact as we're putting those on our vehicles, and truly looking at the end result. So at the end of the vehicle life, what are some things that we can do to ensure more reuse, recycle, and recovery of some of those raw materials?
Oh, that's great. That's great. Ray, thank you. Thank you so much for doing this morning. And then we're going to move right on to FCA. And Al Johnston, since, wait a second, Honda showed up. Oh, you know what? My bad, Al, relax. No wonder Al looked at me funny, like, Helen, what'd you just do to me? I am so sorry, my bad. Let's correct that. Alyssa from Honda, really appreciate you being here this morning, and it's off to you. And Al, you can take that deep breath you just took. Okay, sorry, pal. Okay, Alyssa.
I was excited there for a second, thinking that FCA took on the B. So I guess maybe that's a little future. Good morning. Thank you guys so much for having me. The Honda North American vision, you can see there, is to be a leader in the environment, purchasing together with business partners, aim to realize zero emission society. So Honda, ultimately worldwide, we want to go zero emissions. That is plant side and suppliers. So probably if you've heard me speak before, you know I am 100% purchasing and focus on the suppliers. So if you have questions in regard to any of our manufacturing facilities, I'd be happy to take that back and then follow up later. But this is 100% suppliers and what we're doing through North America. So my team is responsible for approximately 700 suppliers in North America. And so with that, we have a sustainability scorecard that we have been sending out now to our suppliers for about 2 years. Suppliers constantly are giving us, and we're asking, right? Asking for that information. And the OEM, Honda, we were not telling them how they were doing versus their peers. So we've started this sustainability scorecard, which is really driving our environmental activity, showing suppliers where they stand versus others. And in that sustainability scorecard, the environmental piece is large. The first part of this is we ask our suppliers to report into CDP, Carbon Disclosure Project, and we have a target of, right now we have 400 active suppliers that have been reporting their CO2 to us for between 10 years. They've all come on at different places within that 10 years, but we now have 400. We wanted to achieve a 10% reduction from 2010 to 2020, and we did achieve that. We asked each supplier to reduce from their baseline 1%. That last 10 years, we did it with a normalized data with $1 million of spend. Now we're going to be moving from 2020 to 2030, and we're asking for absolute. It's wonderful when a supplier can show that they've reduced based on normalized data, but when sales go up, CO2 goes down and vice versa. We really just want to see that CO2 drop. We know that it is going to be an incredible challenge, and Honda, we still have the target of the 1% per year reduction for our suppliers, but to do that, we also want to set forth a tool to help. So they have two requirements, which is going to be the 1% per year reduction and to report into CDP, but we have this program and we're partnering with Manufacturer 2030 so that the suppliers have a tool to assist in this adventure or this journey that we're taking together. So the tool that we're going to be using through Manufacturer 2030, as you can see on your screen, is called the B. It's going to help with deliverables. If you can see at the bottom of the screen, CO2 emissions reduced at scale, better business intelligence, and to support time and cost efficiency. So what we're really doing, and this will be our second year with Manufacturer 2030. We have currently 6 suppliers that are using the B, and we're going to be moving, and we're releasing today to all 700 suppliers that, hey, this tool is available. Go ahead, Kellen. So this is the supplier feedback that we have. Here are our 6 suppliers. They've let us share their names, and we've had really great reviews. It is per facility that this tool is used. So with that, the suppliers can go on and see the Honda best practices that we have released. Then they can also go in and see if one of these suppliers puts on, sorry, there's a train. If one of the suppliers puts on the board any of their best practices, you can share. What's really great about the B though is it's confidential. So you're really only sharing what you want to share. One thing Honda asks is that you please share your baseline data and then the end of the year CO2 results. We do not ask for any of the savings. This tool is excellent in sharing. For each project that you put in, it will do the calculation for you on those CO2 emissions. Next page, please. So we are launching it today. We are sending out the email to 700 suppliers. This is Honda VP approved. So we are asking that our suppliers take a look at it. We don't want this to be extra work for our suppliers. It's a tool to help. So we're trying to avoid duplication. We've invited all of our OEM friends to take a peek at this. I know Toyota is very much looking at it and maybe getting on board this year still. So any of our suppliers that share Toyota as a customer would be able to put in their data one time, and then it would be allocated the percentage to Honda and the percentage to Toyota, what they want to share only, and then we would get those results. So the access to improvement ideas, like I said, Honda is going to have their own specific place, which we already have, where you can see all of our best practices that we want to share. The automated CO2 footprint and savings estimator is phenomenal. We really wanted a tool that's not extra work. So suppliers can go in throughout the entire year, use the tool, and at the end be ready to input into CDP. That is our main goal. Build strong results based on relationships. You are not in this alone. We at Honda are making a large investment into M2030. And with that, it's going to be a very small amount for our suppliers to join. It would be $600 per facility to join in the the M2030 tool. And then the facility, external and internal reporting, which I just said for CDP. So those communications are going out today. Now, some of you are saying, but I'm not a Honda supplier. If you're not, but you're still interested, you can still contact M2030 and get involved for that small amount. You just would be able to use the tool internally, and maybe there wouldn't be an OEM that's using it yet, but you could get on board. So Honda, we've been the first OEM to set targets for CO2 reduction for our suppliers and put the scorecard out. So we've really been proposing really cool things going forward. Now, if you're thinking about water and waste, that is not something that my team is active in right now because we're focusing on the CO2. But this program, M2030, does, I guess, have that capability. And so we will be moving to that in the future. But right now our goal is to get that 10% reduction absolute by 2030. So I would be happy to take questions.
That's great. That's great. And it's exciting, Alyssa. So 700 suppliers are getting that today. So that's It's going to be a fun couple of days here.
Yeah. Now, realistically, hey, I do want to be realistic, right? 700 suppliers are not signing up. My goal for the first year would be wonderful to have, say, 20. sign up and really test this out for us in a larger scale, especially having Toyota, hopefully, wink, wink, joining us. So please know that it's 700, but realistically, we would love 20 for the year.
I gotcha. Let me ask you, what about the process that you had to go through? I mean, and you made a comment, this is VEEP approved, okay? So the process that you actually went through, because I think other OEMs and other larger suppliers are looking for the same kind of things for their supply chains. What were the process you had to go through in order to kind of put that whole package together? What were the pieces that had to get connected?
Right. So we had to use our indirect procurement. So everything at Honda does go through our indirect. I had to put together a analysis of, say, 5 different companies that do the same activity. And through the Honda, I guess, vetting system, very calculated, that's when M2030 rose to the top. They have already gone through all of our cyber and all of our legal. So now that they are fully a Honda supplier, but I did have to go through a full vetting process with them and looked at about, well, total 5 different companies similar to this.
Thank you so much. Quick question for you. Someone asked, did I catch that right? Suppliers have to pay to be part of the B?
$600 per facility, yes. Now that is, we really feel like suppliers need to have a little skin in the game, that we know that you're going to be active. Honda is paying a significant amount for suppliers to only have to pay $600 per facility. Now, the great thing is say all 5 OEMs on this call join in the B. The OEMs would pay their portion. The suppliers only pay $600 per facility. So say you supply 3 out of the 5 OEMs, you would still only pay $600 for that facility. So we're really doing it so that suppliers have skin in the game. I've done free things before and you just don't get the buy-in. And then this way too, it's making sure that the suppliers are getting top level buy-in and that they're getting support from their top level in making sure that this is integrated into their process. So yes, it's a small price, there is a price, but we really feel it's beneficial for both parties. And it's a low cost.
Exactly. Quick question, one last question for you, and then Al, I will come to you, okay? Which automated CO2 footprint and saving estimators are you guys using?
We're using the one.
Whoever's asked the question should. Okay, thank you.
So for suppliers, we're using the one in the B. We had our very own Honda estimator that was an Excel sheet. It was good. It did its job. We could send it to whomever we needed. But for suppliers now, we still have that available. If needed, and we're collecting CDP right now, but we really are loving what is happening within the B, and it's that estimator that we're using. Now for Honda plants, I cannot answer that, so if that's what you're asking, we can get back to you, but I will tell you the Honda plants are piloting the M2030B. So they're interested in using, okay, the B is what the system is called for M2030. So M2030 is the company. And then the B, which has got, if you go back a couple slides, Kellen, please, you can see going right there. So the B is the actual software that we're using. And so that's what we're using for suppliers that join Excel spreadsheet, and our plants are piloting.
That's great. By the way, just a quick heads up, after we have our break here at around 10:30, when we come back, Martin Chilcott, who is the CEO of M2030, will be moderating that the suppliers panel.
Perfect.
So that's another connection too. The real interesting question here, and I'm just going to read it. When you are communicating with the suppliers, are you just telling their sales teams that they need to report emissions to you, or is there more complex interactions between the facility operators as well?
So when we work with suppliers, we become a team. So we have environmental contacts at Honda that for the suppliers, they work directly with me and my team. And we also have sustainability contacts. And within the scorecard, you're required to have 2. so that if they win the lottery, we can always be in contact. We provide webinars, which we're doing next week for our suppliers for this platform and Honda information. So we really become a team. We don't just send you to manufacturer 2030 and be done. We will do quarterly updates, Honda, my team with the supplier. So we're very interactive. We're not sending you to this company and letting you be. Ha, be. I'm so funny.
That was a good one.
Is that, yeah, thanks. Does that answer the question? We're a team.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. We appreciate it, Alyssa. Okay, Al, now my friend, Al from FCA, and I think Kellen's already got your presentation up. So thanks for being part of this panel, Al.
No problem. Our pleasure to be invited and to be involved in this really fascinating topic. It's been very educational, I think, to see this presentations from the various autos. In FCA, we're actually going through the process right now of establishing our future targets for environmental sustainability. So I'm afraid I don't have really any forward-looking information to provide, which is unfortunate. If this were in Q4, I think I would, but we're that close to establishing it right now. I believe we're looking into 2030 targets, but I'm not sure that's even necessarily going to be where we end up. So, but what I thought I would do is, next slide, Kellen, a couple things. One is I will play a really good video that says it better than I can, of where we've come from and what we're doing in the sustainability arena. And then I will talk about where we're at right now against our 2020 sustainability targets that we had created in 2010. So Kellen, do you want to go ahead and play this video? All right, thank you. Next slide. So the slides I've got here are from our 2019 sustainability report, which was published a couple months ago. There's essentially 4 sustainability targets that we had published in 2010 for 2020. And let's start with energy. Next slide. This kind of gives you a little bit of a blow up of what's presented on this page. And as you can see, in 2010, our energy per unit was 7.3 gigajoules. Our target was a 30% reduction against that. Unfortunately, we're at about 6.1, so I think that's about 18% reduction. We're still working on achieving that, and that includes both direct and indirect energy. So that's where we're at currently on energy. Next slide. So the second target was CO2 emissions. Next slide. This one we did a little bit better. The 2010 baseline was 0.61 tons per unit vehicle produced. Our 2019 performance has been down to 0.45. Our target was 32% reduction, so we're a little bit behind that target also, but I believe on track. Next slide. And water management, as we've heard, this is an important target. Next slide. So for water in 2010, we were at 5 cubic meters per unit produced. Our target for 2020 was a 40% reduction against that. And we've essentially achieved that in 2019 at 3 cubic meters per unit produced. Next slide. And waste. Next slide. So for waste in 2010, we were at 8.2 kilograms per unit produced, and we have achieved that goal. I believe it was 2015, but we've achieved that goal of a 54% reduction in waste generated per unit, and in 2019, we're at a 3.4 kilogram per unit level. So we've achieved that target. Next slide. Yeah, so this is a link. Obviously, you can search on the internet and find our sustainability report. It's got all the details of what we've achieved through 2019. And as I said, I can't even at this point report out what targets we're going to establish or what are the categories of targets. So not much more to report on that. Does anybody have any questions?
Al, just if you would, because the other folks that are making presentations are at a different position in the context of their objectives, et cetera. So as you said, you're kind of coming up with yours now. So would you take just a few minutes and talk about what that process is internally as you develop that? Because you've got your all operating group, you've got the sustainability folks, you've got all those different business units. How does that all play together? Who's sitting around that table that's ultimately going to come up with what those are going to be for FCA?
And that's interesting because I believe in 2010, it was a small group that involved Greg Rose and some of the team that worked for him at the time. And they were actively involved in that process. At this time, you go around, there's a global work group that's been established primarily of the sustainability organizations. And I believe Greg's been involved in some of those meetings, but I personally have not. So I'm actually not involved in that process. Like I say, it's a different organization that's working on it. And I trust they're getting input from various organizations throughout the company. One of the key elements I think that's critical, and hearing other presentations points out to me that this is obviously done everywhere else, is linkage between what the target is and the means to get there. And I feel it's so important to understand before you set a target, what is your strategy to get there, and getting both the management support and the financial resources to do it. And so I'm concerned, or I need to, I want to make sure that as part of our process, that's going to happen. Because I think, for example, in our energy goal, I think one of the reasons why we haven't gotten as far as we would have liked is maybe the goal was set without the means to achieve it identified and the resources identified to get there. So that process is ongoing, like I say, and it's a sustainability organization globally that's doing it, and yeah, so it's not necessarily an EHS organization.
Got it. Thank you. Yep. Now, first of all, Al, thank you. Did I hear someone going to ask a question? Okay, Al, first of all, thank you so much for being part of this panel discussion. Now, I'm going to come back, if you will, Ray and Alyssa and Kevin, if you all will be back up. Let me ask a generic question to all of you, and then you can so you can talk over each other as you're trying to answer it, okay? The way that we all do these days with a little bit of delays. As you look at your environmental aspirational goals, how is that being communicated to employees, your plants, your suppliers, the general public, that whole area of communicating what you are doing to key internal and external audiences? Anybody want to take that one on?
I don't mind starting.
There you go, Alyssa. Thank you.
Wonderful. So we have our sustainability report. I think all of us OEMs, we have that. For sustainability, when it comes, now mind you, remember, I'm just supplier side. So when it comes to the supplier side, we do have sustainability training that's in the CBT form that we are requiring our suppliers to take. It is part of our scorecard. 2 or more of their associates, hopefully at different levels, are taking that CBT. That has become a requirement as of this year. We also have that same CBT, and we have it that is directed to Honda associates. So all of our purchasing, we're just starting it now, will be taking that CBT and understanding what sustainability is and what the requirements are for the suppliers so that they are also educated.
Great. Kevin, I see you starting to talk.
Yes, thank you. We have a number of ways in which we're doing this. First of all, we do have internal training for our own team members that they have to take, and then we have we're in the process of I give talks to all our supplier meetings at different times. We also have our supplier website that we pass along information. We also have our green supplier guidelines / requirements that we have issued, and we're about to reissue them again. Just a heads up to suppliers out there. We always pass out a number of videos that talk about this as well. And again, as Alyssa said, we have our annual reports that are out there as well.
Great. Kevin, Ray, do I hear you moving toward the mic?
Yes, I was moving towards the mic. So at General Motors, we have the sustainability report that we put out every year. In addition to that, this year we've named a new Chief Sustainability Officer, who is Dane Parker, as well as a host or a new team for our Office of Environmental Sustainability, which includes a communications lead for sustainability. And with that new communications lead came a brand new strategy on sustainability communications. So we've taken a new approach, and in that new approach, we're looking at social media for both internally and externally, website stories. This is both for internal and external, as well as looking at training. So we now have a training class for environmental sustainability that's available internally for employees. We're developing a plan for our suppliers in terms of training for them, as well as the best methods for communication. So we're looking at if that's through our typical supplier business meetings or updates, or if that's through other measures. But there is a broad plan that's been developed by our new communications lead.
It's awesome. Al, any comment on that? Or you're more in the developmental stages?
Yeah, we are definitely developmental, but we have a really robust communications organization that will handle communications inside and outside. So purchasing handles communications with suppliers, so I'm not exactly sure how that'll work yet. We do have a supplier portal where they get information. But I believe it'll all be rolled out through sustainability through the communications organization.
That's great. Andy Hobbs, were you able to rejoin us on the phone? I can't tell. You there?
He is not, Steve.
Just want to make sure. Okay, real fine. Thanks, Kel. Here's another question for you. Now, this is out of left field, and you can take it or just not take it, okay? what do you all are you starting to see the impacts of the statements that have come out of BlackRock, the street, the Business Roundtable's generic statement with regard to new responsibilities for corporations, et cetera? That whole, I don't know that it's a wave, but it's certainly I don't know if it's a movement, but it may be a wave of those kind of communications that are talking about the role of what corporations should be and those real life impacts. Are you starting to see those questions starting to flow down to you all in the context of how the company needs to be prepared to respond to those?
Actually, I'll start this one. Yeah, I mean, we have, you know, investor relations is an important part of the business, and how do we present ourselves and how do we answer the questions to our investors, to the NGOs that we're talking to, and how those two are talking. So yes, those questions are addressed, and we are looking, and that's why I spend a lot of time in our treasurer's office and trying to make sure that they understand how that linkage is made.
Thanks, Kevin. Anybody else want to take that one on? Ray? I'm sorry, I thought you were moving. You there? Okay,
I was.
good.
I'm moving towards to the microphone. So at General Motors, we also have an investor relations team that works very closely with our investor organizations. So that would include groups like BlackRock and some of the others, and answering their specific questions and making sure that as we do our materiality assessments and other items that we're taking their considerations and their questions and goals into our plan. So we're looking at that and also having specific discussions with each of them to make sure that we understand what some of their questions and concerns are and looking at ways in which we can address them.
Great. Alyssa, any comments on that from the standpoint of suppliers?
You can slap my hand. I got distracted.
That's okay. Well, hey, you're working. I can see that you're working.
I was
the question
typing
was
on
in
the
the
chat
context.
box. Sorry.
I know. No, I know you were because I was watching you. What about, I was asking the question in the context of both BlackRock, Business Roundtables, some of those larger organizations now that are talking about the future role of what corporations should be. And from the standpoint of you and with regard to procurement and supply chain, just wondering if those kind of issues are starting to flow down to you, those questions are coming to you.
Slowly. I mean, it's a big deal, but Honda, we do move very slow. So it is happening, and it's happening very slowly, but I'm making sure that my position with the supply base is one that once those questions start flowing down to me, I have answers. So
that's great. That's great. Well, listen, I want to thank all of you all for being on this panel this morning. Thank you so much. If there were a way to do one of these for you, we would appropriately thank you. If there are additional questions of these panelists from you folks that participated in the call this morning, don't hesitate to get them to Kellen or myself, and we'll get them forwarded to you. But the great thing about SP is everybody is engaged and available, so you don't have to go through us to get to anybody that's engaged with this organization, and that's one of the great things about it. So on behalf of all of us, thank you, panelists, for being on this morning. We will thank Andy and Abstencia, and I'm going to now turn it over to Kellen to kind of take us the next step. But thanks again, guys. We appreciate it. Go ahead, Kel.
Sure, thank you. So just want to make everyone aware, after our panel ending just now, we have another great panel coming up at 11 o'clock that Martin Chilcott from Manufacture 2030 will be moderating together with Bosch, Denso, and Lear, taking a look at how some of the goals that we heard about in the OEM panel this morning are cascading down to the supply chain and how suppliers are acting in those areas. So that'll be another great discussion. I encourage everyone to join us at 11 o'clock again this morning, and then of course we've got more discussions coming up tomorrow as well. So look forward to seeing you through the rest of the event, and we'll have about a 30-minute break here before we're live again at 11. So thank you, everyone.